What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, August 22nd, 2024, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 1600 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some breaking news coming in from Russia and the Middle East. So I want to update you guys on the situation with Iran and Israel, and also with Ukraine and Russia. And I want to also update you guys on the nuclear forces. So if you didn't see my update yesterday or my live stream yesterday, we had a large amount of high priority nuclear messages that were transmitted by U.S. nuclear forces, and that could mean that something is about to go down in the coming days. So we have to stay on high alert. But what you're looking at here is a picture of the Kremlin yesterday, and you can see that it's completely dark and there's no street lights anywhere here. And so apparently Moscow is now experiencing severe electricity shortages, and that has caused large portions of Moscow to go dark. And apparently this is due to Western sanctions causing difficulties in servicing foreign turbines at Russian thermal power plants, leading to outages. Okay, so the power plants can't get parts for the turbines that they need to make power. Okay, and as a result, you have blackouts occurring in Moscow, the capital city, which is just absolutely insane. And I'm going to be covering this in my 24/7 live stream, which is up right now. And the head of the IAEA, that's the UN Nuclear Watchdog Agency, intends to visit the Kursk nuclear power plant next week, according to the Financial Times. Rafael Grossi told the newspaper that he very seriously assesses the risk of damage to the plant as a result of Ukraine's invasion of the Kursk region. He emphasized that the nuclear power plant is technically within the reach of artillery from Ukrainian positions. Okay, so this is huge news, guys. And we have some more concerning information coming out of Russia. This is coming from the Murmansk region, which is in northern Russia. That's the Kola Peninsula, close to Finland, near Scandinavia. Yesterday, a Ukrainian suicide attack drone was shot down in the Murmansk region, raising questions about where it came from, considering that Ukraine is 3,000 kilometers away. Okay, so this is either a new drone that Ukraine has built that can travel extreme distances, or it was launched from a NATO country, which is what a lot of the pro-Russian groups are saying. But let me play this video for you. This is absolutely insane, guys. So you can hear the Russians trying to shoot it down. I don't know if they're using small arms or if they have some kind of Pantsir air defense system, but you can see this drone here. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing their most aggressive discount yet on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com. They've lowered the price of their 3-month food supply from $800 down to $500. 3 months of emergency food for $500. That is a really good deal, and it will last you 25 years because it is freeze dried, and it's all packed within 6 rugged water resistant buckets. So you have all that food in a small package. You can store that pretty much anywhere, and you can also take it with you. If you have to bug out, you can throw that in your vehicle easily. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $300 off the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply, $500 for it. Also, they have free shipping and handling included. In addition to the 3-month supply, they also have a general store. And to get to their general store, you got to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see the My Patriot Supply logo at the very bottom of the page. You click on that, and it'll take you to their general store, and they have all kinds of discounts. And to get the deals, you got to use my link, preparewithNYPrepper.com, and I'll leave the link in the description below this video. They're really trying hard to shoot this thing down. And again, this is a drone. There's no people in this. Okay, this is an empty plane.
Сбили, блядь, красавцы бы! Нахуй!
It must have had a lot of explosives in it, because look at that huge fireball there. Okay, so absolutely insane. And we currently have 2 B-52 nuclear bombers airborne over the plains and the southern U.S. We have one over Louisiana and one over Oklahoma. And we also have 2 pairs of aerial refuelers flying over the missile wing in Montana. This is the 341st Missile Wing here north of Great Falls. This is where we have 1/3 of our land-based ICBMs. So they could be refueling some assets that have their transponders turned off. Very interesting. And here we have some pictures showing Ukrainian fighter jets escorting an American B-52 over the Black Sea. This was circulating on social media yesterday. Apparently, this was actually in 2020, and this is not a new picture, but I cannot confirm 100% when this picture was taken. But people are saying it was in 2020. They did an exercise together with the U.S. Okay, they escorted a B-52 that apparently practiced a bombing run on Odessa or something like that. But this is very, very concerning, guys. Okay, the fact that Ukrainian MiG-29s are escorting B-52s is clearly a sign that the U.S. is preparing for a contingency in which they have to bombard Russian forces in Ukraine. And speaking of Ukraine, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine has put out this advisory warning about the possibility of daytime and nighttime missile strikes on Ukraine this coming weekend, because on the 24th is Ukraine's Independence Day. So Russia could launch a massive strike this weekend over the next few days on Ukraine to disrupt their celebrations. But what's interesting about this update here is that they specifically say the Department of State has information that Russia is stepping up efforts to launch strikes against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure and government facilities in the coming days. Okay, so it's interesting they mention government facilities. And Ukraine's Defense Minister Rustem Umerov met with a bipartisan delegation from the U.S. House of Representatives during their visit to Kyiv on August 21st. That's yesterday. Republican Representative Rob Wittman and Democratic Representative David Trone spoke with Umerov about the situation on Ukraine's front lines and Washington's policy on Ukraine's use of long-range weapons against Russian targets. I emphasized the need to obtain prompt permission from our allies to fully use long-range weapons against targets in Russia, Umerov said. This is a matter of protecting our peaceful cities and villages. Okay, so the defense minister of Ukraine is pushing the U.S. House delegation that went to Ukraine yesterday to allow Ukraine to use long-range weapons inside of Russia. And Ukrainian forces have now taken control of the town of Krasna Akhtabayarsky in the Kursk region in Russia. And apparently this is now cutting off the land connection with the southern bank of the same river. And I'll show you guys where that is in a second here. So here we have Google Earth, and you can see Kursk is up here. Sumy is down here. Here's Suja. This is the village that or town that the Ukrainians took control of. This is where that natural gas metering station is that controls Russian gas flow into Europe. The Ukrainians have that under their control. But right here you can see this yellow pin, this town right here, okay, right on the bank of the same river is where the Ukrainians are now. And this whole section right here where Glushkova is and all these little towns here could come under the control of Ukrainian forces in the coming days, because the Ukrainians have blown up all the bridges on this river here. You can see the river here. They've blown up all the bridges here. Okay, so now the Russians are not going to be able to easily get into this area to reinforce it. So I anticipate the Ukrainians are going to sweep through this whole area and quickly take it over and basically double the amount of land that they control in Kursk. Now also, the Ukrainians have tried to enter into the Bryansk region over here near Belarus. This is the Belarus border right here. Ukraine on the bottom, Belarus on the left, Russia on the right. They tried to enter into this area here with a small reconnaissance group of maybe just 200 troops just to see what Russia's defenses are like. And I do anticipate that the Ukrainians are going to try to push into Bryansk. And this was near the village of Zabrama, okay, Zabrama. And the Russians claim that fighting with Ukrainian forces is still ongoing on the border between the two countries in the Bryansk region, so fighting is still ongoing. And Russian sources are now saying that 30% of Ukraine's army is now concentrated along the borders of Bryansk, Kursk, and Belgorod. Okay, so that's this area right here. Okay, Sumy and Kharkiv and Chernihiv area. This area of Ukraine right here is where they have massed a massive amount of troops, and they're going to try to push into Bryansk, which is up here, Kursk, and Belgorod. Okay, and the purpose of this would be for negotiations with Putin. And Ukrainian special forces have apparently eliminated the commander of the infamous Akhmat Brigade with the call sign Shustry near Logov in the Kursk Oblast. So the Akhmat Brigade is one of the elite Chechen brigades, and they apparently have eliminated the leader of this brigade. And Kadyrov, the leader of Chechnya, informed Putin during Putin's visit to Chechnya yesterday that he has tens of thousands of Chechen soldiers that are ready to go to Kursk. And yesterday when Putin visited Chechnya, he actually kissed a Koran, which is very strange considering that Putin is a Christian. Let me show you guys the latest map of the fires along the border of Ukraine and Russia, so you can see where all the active fighting is going on based on these red dots, which represent fires that are spotted by NASA satellites. And you can see that since midnight last night, we still have a lot of activity here in this area of Kursk, okay? And this is that critical area south of the same river that the Ukrainians are about to sweep through. But you can see there's some fighting going on over here. This is the area where they tried to cross into Bryansk yesterday. So a lot of activity here. And if we look at the last 7 days, you can see all of the activity here along the Russian-Ukrainian border. Okay, all of the artillery strikes going on here. Okay, absolutely insane. And the Marinovka Air Base in the Volgograd region of Russia is now burning after a Ukrainian drone strike last night. And the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, said that if NATO troops enter Ukraine, both tactical and strategic nuclear weapons will be used, and it would start World War III. and an unknown object with Russian writing on it crashed into the forest in northern Poland close to Kaliningrad yesterday. And India's Prime Minister Modi and Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk officially announced a strategic partnership after the first trip by any Indian Prime Minister to Poland since 1970. And the CIA Director William Burns has arrived in Serbia, which is very interesting. And the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group has now arrived in the Middle East, which includes F-35s, F-18s, and several Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. So this is clearly preparations for something to happen in the Middle East. And over a dozen airstrikes by the Israeli Air Force have targeted multiple towns along the border with northern Israel and southern Lebanon last night. And U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken told his G7 counterparts that Iran will launch an attack on Israel in the next 24 to 48 hours. So we'll have to wait and see if that actually happens or not. They've been saying that for weeks now. But all those Skymaster messages yesterday could mean that it might be this weekend. And it's also possible that Russia is going to attack Ukraine at the same time. And Iranian elites are currently discussing changing the Iranian nuclear stance, officials tell Al Jazeera. It appears Iran's inner circle of elites are going to change their no nuclear weapons policy. And air raid sirens were heard at the UN base in southern Lebanon last night. Here we have video footage of that. And apparently the UN is saying that they were just testing their air raid sirens in case of a contingency and if they have to evacuate the bases. Okay, so if you guys are not aware, there is a UN peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon, which basically does nothing, obviously, because there's no peace in southern Lebanon right now. So obviously they're useless, but you know, they have this base there. So let me just play this for you so you can hear it for yourself. So I find the timing of all this very interesting. Okay, the ceasefire deal has collapsed. Anthony Blinken left Israel yesterday. Skymaster messages yesterday. The Abraham Lincoln Strike Group is now in position. Okay, so it does appear that something could be imminent, maybe this weekend, maybe tonight, because all the pieces are moving into position now. Okay, and I think that the ceasefire deal was just a stalling tactic. I think they wanted to stall Iran and move everything into position, and they used this whole ceasefire thing as just a stalling tactic, because you notice that the Abraham Lincoln just got into position as soon as this ceasefire deal collapsed. So interesting timing. And Israeli Channel 12 reports that Palestinian sources claim Hamas has decided to retaliate for the killing of their leader, Ismail Haniyeh, by targeting Israelis abroad. Okay, so be careful if you're an Israeli. And the Iranian Space Agency plans to launch 14 satellites with 30 more in construction, including 20 by the private sector. Very interesting. And we had some interesting flights yesterday. So here we have a Pegasus refueler that was looping near Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. This is pretty rare. And the only reason one of these would be looping up here is to refuel potentially a fighter jet or a bomber or some kind of clandestine aircraft that has its transponder turned off. And this was during the Skymaster event yesterday. And we had a lot of reconnaissance activity in Asia last night. So here you can see a U.S. Navy reconnaissance drone that flew straight towards China, just near the northern part of Taiwan. And then there was a Chinese military plane flying in the Taiwan Strait. And then off the southern coast of Taiwan, we had a U.S. reconnaissance plane patrolling as well. And we also had this U-2 spy plane that flew to South Korea last night, so that's pretty interesting. And we had this RQ-4 Global Hawk fly up into the Baltic countries and into Finland, but it spent a lot of time in Estonia, probably spent several hours in Estonia just looping here near the Russian border. Then it went all the way up to northern Finland, and then it came back down. And we had a lot of reconnaissance in the eastern Mediterranean area last night as well. Here we have a U.S. Navy reconnaissance drone that was patrolling the coast of Israel and Lebanon and Syria. And then we also had a P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter off the coast of Lebanon. And then this is interesting. We had 2 NATO AWACS planes fly down to Turkey. So we're clearly moving assets into the region for an escalation, okay? We had 2 AWACS planes fly over the Atlantic 3 days ago and land in Crete. Now we have 2 NATO AWACS planes fly down to southern Turkey. We also had 2 aerial refuelers fly over the Atlantic that are associated with our B-2 stealth bombers. So preparations are being made for an escalation, but that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news. And until then, you can check out my 24/7 live stream. It's running right now. I want to remind you guys that in less than 3 weeks, I'm going to be traveling abroad. I'm going to be going to Poland for 2 weeks. And during that time, I'm not going to be able to do as many of these updates. But I will try to set up the 24/7 streams while I'm there, so this way at least we can have that going and I can communicate with you guys through the 24/7 streams. But the daily updates are going to be minimized quite a bit during that time period, so this is going to be like mid-September. But that's it for now. I'll see you guys later on or in the live stream, and until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.